Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Again, if you would, we'll start off the same way. I ask you to like and to share the post today, and then grab a Bible or a tablet, phone, and join me in the 102nd Psalm, Psalm 102, beginning in verse 6 today. And these are a couple of unusual verses, and I think you'll see why I say that in just a minute as we dig into these verses. Again, this psalm is written by a man who is overwhelmed. He is in desperate situation, and I get the sense as you read this, he believes that his death is near, and that he is in a desperate situation. It is again believed that Daniel wrote these words while in the Babylonian captivity, and that actually were written at several different times and then brought together into one particular psalm. And so we're picking up in the 6th verse, and he's going to describe, it's going to take a minute to develop this, but I think he's going to say some things here that will probably resonate with most believers. And very simply, I'm going to just sum it up and say, as he is going through this time, suffering, again, most likely, we believe, still in the Babylonian captivity. He describes several situations who are where people, whether birds, he's using birds as an example, are out of their natural habitation. And I think as believers, sometimes we can identify with that. We sometimes, I believe, probably feel that way as believers, that we're just not in our natural, we're not home. If you're a believer in Jesus Christ, you're not home yet. And sometimes it gets overwhelming on this earth and this life, dealing with the circumstances that come along. And so let's look at these verses and these descriptions that he's going to give us here. He starts in verse 6 by saying, I am a pelican in the wilderness. That just seems odd to begin with. And so as he talks about that, most of us, I think, recognize that a pelican is not a wilderness or a desert bird at all. It is a water bird. That's its home is in water, and again, its natural habitat, its natural home is actually in Uganda, and so it goes that delta there. That is the natural home of a pelican. But he says, I feel like a pelican that has been picked up out of the delta, picked up out of the waters, and taken and put in a desert. A wilderness is the word that he uses, but again, the actual the Hebrew word there probably is better for you and I to understand as a desert. And so he says, I feel like I've been uprooted and taken out of my home. Same thing here when he says, I am like an owl of the desert. John Phillips in his commentary points out that this is a difficult word for us to really to comprehend and to get a hold of because of the way the word owl is used in Scripture. In the King James Version of the Bible, the word owl is used 16 different times, and those 16 times they translate 5 different Hebrew words, and so it's a little hard to get a handle on the idea of an owl. But he goes on and explains that the word owl here that is used, and then he quotes another scholar himself to say that this is the word that is used there is what is known as a tawny, Tawny, a tawny owl. And again, it's a very small owl, and just to make it straightforward again, it shows up in a lot of different places, but one that it is not natural is in the desert. This little owl does not naturally reside in a desert. So again, pelican out of his place, an owl out of his place. He says, I watch in verse 7, and as a sparrow alone upon the housetop. Again, this one is another situation where typically, if you've ever seen sparrows, typically sparrows stick together. They fly together, they hang out together, and they stay in a flock. And so a sparrow alone on a housetop is also an unusual sight. It's not where ordinarily a sparrow, you wouldn't ordinarily find a sparrow sitting alone on a housetop, unless something was wrong, unless it was injured or its mate had been killed, something like that. That's the only reason you would see that. And so he uses 3 birds here, the pelican and the owl and the sparrow, to say, I'm in the wrong place. I feel like I'm where I don't belong. And again, if the author here is Daniel, then certainly that would make sense, because he was writing from Babylon. And so he is saying, I feel like I'm just out of my element. I'm not where I belong. And so he's crying out to the Lord in that situation. And again, as I said earlier, I think that really should and could resonate with believers as we realize as we go through this life, that we are not home. This is not our world. We are citizens of a different kingdom, and so we need to remind ourselves of that constantly. You take a pelican and you put it out into the wilderness. That pelican can try everything it wants to fit in. It can try to get, but most likely it's not going to survive. It's probably going to die in the wilderness. Same thing with an owl in the desert. It's probably not going to survive in that situation. And so these 2 verses are a really clear picture, I think, for most of us. You don't have to be a bird specialist to understand what the psalmist is writing about as he talks about the pelican in the wilderness, an owl in the desert, a sparrow by himself. And so we need to remind ourselves, like the psalmist, again, that we're not where we belong. We're not home yet, and we need to be cautious that we don't try to fit in this world. That we're careful to maintain our to remember that our citizenship is in heaven, and to live like we are citizens of another country, that we don't allow this world to influence and to change us. Put a pelican in the wilderness, it's still a pelican. Put an owl in the desert, it's still an owl, and that's not its home. And my friends, this morning I want to remind you that this is not our home. We should be living and acting like citizens of another kingdom. All right, I hope those couple of verses will challenge you this morning, will encourage you, and again remind you that we are not home. We are not home yet. We have a little ways to go before we're home. All right, have a great day, and we'll see you back here first thing tomorrow morning.